Hello and welcome to the third unit of our second week in the course. Avoid SAP S4HANA project delays with third-party system service virtualization. My name is Michał Ibrom and it's my pleasure to conduct this lesson and show you how the service virtualization works in practice. My colleagues in the previous units have already explained the concept behind service virtualization tailored for different types of SAP S4HANA migration projects. You've also learned how to create and group test cases in the INT4 Suite tool based on messages from various platforms and historical transactions. With that in mind, now I will go one step further and will demonstrate how to execute the test cases and thus virtualize the B2B partners or external systems. We will also check what benefits this can bring to Daphne and Oskar, the personas you've already met in the previous lessons. So let's have a look at some real-life tasks that Daphne as SAP consultant is doing as part of her daily duties. She was asked to check if the flow of the sales order posting sent by the EDI partner is working fine on the new SAP S4HANA system. This inbound sales order initiates the first step in a larger end-to-end order-to-cash scenario to be validated as part of system integration test. So now let's think for a moment what options Daphne has to perform the testing. She can contact the EDI partner and ask for support by sending a test message. She can try to manually create and push the payloads by using some standard API testing tools like SoapUI or Postman, or by using some standard SAP transactions like for instance WE19. Or we can simulate the external system by using the service virtualization capability of the INT4 Suite tool and the test cases collected for that interface. Of course, each of these options will enable Daphne to achieve the goal of creating a sales order on the target SAP system. However, each of them in a different way, and as you may probably guess, the last solution would be the most suitable. Because on the one hand, it eliminates the disadvantages of the first two options, that is mainly dependence on the external resources, complexity and time consumption, and on the other hand, it allows for a really quick and scalable way of testing. What's even more important, as Daphne learned in the previous units, she can save the historical messages from the current production environment with the real productive examples of the sales order messages sent by the EDI partner. And this actually gives in addition the confidence that the test is not done on some dummy data, but rather on the real-life examples. Moreover, maybe now Daphne is thinking only about performing a single test case, but imagine if she would have to test hundreds of variations. Without INT4 Suite and saving the historical transactions, it would be impossible to successfully test all of them. And this is really a game changer. As to test a process, Daphne not only doesn't need to ask and wait for the response from the SPOCs at the EDI partner side, but she also doesn't need to spend her precious time on building dummy messages, setting up all the technical things and trying to copy somehow the messages from the production. But okay, enough talking. Let's jump into the system and let's see how Daphne executes some test cases and virtualizes the B2B partner. The screen of the INT4 Suite tool that is now displayed should seem familiar, as it was already shown in the previous unit by my colleague Mateusz. So this time Daphne, in order to carry out her task and send a message for the sales order interface, clicks on the tile with the API tester cockpit. And when she enters the cockpit, she can see a repository of all the available test scenarios, and among them she should find also the test cases created in the previous units, so let's search for them. Okay, here they are. And now, in order to virtualize an external system and thus send a message to the SAP S4HANA system, all she has to do is just to select the test cases that the test team wanted to validate for that O2C scenario. So she got information that it should be done, for example, from Germany. So let's find such an example. And once she finds some test cases, all she has to do is just to select one of the test cases and click on the execute selected. And now INT4 Suite is working on that, which means that the tool is virtualizing the EDI partner system and sending a message via the middleware platform, which in this case is the SAP PO, to the target S4HANA system. And after a while, we should see that the test case is completed and we should get some basic information about the execution. So let's wait for that. Okay, It's already done. On the screen we can see some basic informations, but she wants to see some more details, so she can click on the Legacy Report button. And in the report, after selecting the test case, this report contains a short summary about the execution parameters, such as the test case, the automation object name, the test type, and others. But what's important, if she scrolls down, it gives the key values from the message content that he has just triggered. And here are two values presented. On the left-hand side, she can see the reference purchase order number taken from the original, real productive example, and now is stored as a template in the tool repository. And on the right-hand side is the current fresh value generated during this test case execution. At this point, maybe you may be wondering where actually these values and other parameters that we see came from, but no worries. My colleague Konstantinos will explain these variables in detail in the next unit. And this is quite important because knowing these values, Daphne can either go to the S4HANA system and check if everything is reflecting correctly for the newly created sales order, or she can provide this value to other test or functional consultants responsible for this scenario and ask them for verification. Daphne wants to try the first option, so she goes to S4HANA system, and inside the system she opens the VA03 transaction code. And there, as she knows the purchase order number, she can use this number, put it in the purchase order text box, then click on search. And there we got the reference to the created sales order. And as we can see, indeed, the sales order was created in the S4HANA system, and it means that the task can be considered as completed. Fine. So Daphne's first task is completed, and it has given her a feeling on how quick and simple service virtualization can be. However, as I already mentioned earlier, what if she would receive a request to push multiple test cases at once and thus generate different variations of test data for a scenario? No problem at all. This is exactly where the real value of scalability comes out. But again, instead of talking, let's just do it directly in the system. Let's go back to the cockpit, and this time let's execute some more test cases available for that flow. So to achieve this, Daphne can mark a few of them. So for instance, not only for Germany, but as well for some other countries. So for instance, let's scroll and let's see the examples for Poland. So now in total we have 17 different test cases, and once I click on the Execute Selected button, INT4 Suite engine will process all of those 17 different test cases. And this is where Daphne may be positively surprised, as the execution of 17 different test cases took almost the same time as the execution of a single test case. And this can really make life easier and can boost testing process to a higher level in any project. Just think how much time Daphne would have to spend on either manually creating such combinations of test data or coordinating such activity in cooperation with external resources. Daphne is very happy, as she automated not only the part where she saved messages from production to have valid and reliable test data, but she also automated the way to send those messages, even massively. Okay. So that's how Daphne again virtualized the EDI partner, and as a result created several sales order examples for the test team, and now they can use it for further scenario testing as part of SIT. And actually analogies of such automation we just saw we experience in our daily lives. For example, instead of washing clothes one by one and then waiting for them to dry, we can put all the clothes in the washing machine and it will wash and dry them for us. Of course, the role of the washing machine in our example is played by the INT4 Switch tool, and the clothes are the test cases. We just have to select them and click on the button. Automated service virtualization also helped Oskar, the solution architect you've met in the last unit. This time, the development team led by Oskar was in the process of implementing a new interface from scratch, and they needed to have some test messages pushed into the development environment in order to validate mappings in SAP PIPO middleware, as well as the ABAP logic implemented on S4HANA side. They couldn't ask someone from the EDI partner to send these messages to the dev environment because there was no connection with EDI partner in dev. So they were wondering if INT4 Suite could also support them in this case and virtualize that. Indeed, the SV capability of INT4 Suite can be used in such cases as well, and can bring many benefits already in the development phase by following the shift-left approach or test-driven development, which in general should help in validating and discovering potential issues as early as possible. This approach allows to send messages collected from other environments, for example from production, to test, quality or development system, and the beauty of this is that no additional effort is required. The same messages virtualized from the EDI partners can be reused in no time on any environment. Let's jump again to the system and see how Oscar can do this. This task differs from the previous ones in that the developers are working on the development system rather than on the test system, as Daphne did. So that's why, in order to help them and trigger the payloads to the development system, Oscar has to change the target environment. So let's select some of the test cases. So maybe the first one. And then click on the Execute Selected with Parameters button. And then Oscar gets a screen with some additional options that can be set during test case execution. In the current task, the key one is to define the environment to which the payload will be sent. So Oscar, from the second option, selects the development environment. We can see that we have multiple environments there, but we are interested in the dev. Besides that, he can also choose the test run type. So for instance, test build development. And he can as well name the test run. So for instance, dev test 1. Okay, that's all. Once all the required parameters are set, he can just click on the OK button. And again, as always, INT4 Suite is processing the test case. After a while, he gets the standard execution report. And among others, he can see that right now the environment is set as dev. So that's the key change that we did right now. So instead of sending the messages to the default test system, we triggered them on the dev system. Okay, so it looks fine. And if we will go into the test case details, we can see that the test run is now set to dev test 1. The test run type is test build development, so it seems to be okay. So now Oscar can ask his teammates to do the analysis and required changes, and later they can repeat the cycle by again sending the test messages as many times as needed until they will be sure that the interface is working correctly. Great, that's all in this unit. Let me just recap what we have learned. It's very easy to execute single and multiple test cases and thus do the service virtualization. Prerequisite is of course creating of test cases. INT4 Suite is technology agnostic, and the approach of virtualizing the messages sent from EDI partners is the same for different types of integration platforms like SAP CPI or SAP PO, and interface data types like IDOC, XML, JSON and so on. And this is all possible of the fact that the INT4 Suite uses tailored SAP service virtualization. There are different options for executing and automating the virtualization process depending on the use cases. I hope you enjoyed this practical lesson and it was valuable for you. Now you should have a feeling on how simple the service virtualization is and how it can be utilized in daily project tasks. At the end, I would like to add that everything I have shown you today directly in the INT4 Suite tool, and even more, can also be done indirectly using chatbots integrated with the INT4 Suite tool, and this makes it even easier and it enables independent testing for different types of user, for example, by testers, functional consultants and developers. You will find out more about this in the first unit of week 3. Many thanks and see you next time.